I need to first figure out what are the relevant strengths that would make a difference for this individual in maybe the kind of company he has, the values they have, the beliefs they have, or the kind of skills they need. Yeah. I would then need to sit and say that, okay, in this scenario, what are the kind of values, beliefs, or skills that I would like to highlight? So imagine that that you're a bank manager, and I have this company called Storyworks, and I'm looking for a loan. I would obviously not walk in and come up with a story. I would think, okay, what do you think that this guy might think of? And I might say, chances are in today's world, he's gone through my LinkedIn profile, and maybe he's looked at it and said, this guy has had a cushy job for 21 years, the first 14 in one of the world's most risk-averse companies. He's worked in structured environments where he's got all the support for the work he does. Will he be able to do things on his own? Does he have entrepreneurial skills? So I would have sat and said, okay, this is what I need to prove to him. Without using that word, I need to prove that I'm entrepreneurial. And then I need to look at my life and find instances where I have displayed that value, belief, skill, competency. So here is this business, and I think it needs me to be creative and innovative. It also needs me to be extremely diligent and thorough. Let's say those. And so I want to come across in this interview as not only creative and innovative, but I'm not all over the place. I'm also very thorough. So now I go back through my life and run the timeline to see what are the instances where I have been these. And I've trained now more than 700 very senior people across Asia and parts of the world. And we've run this exercise where we said, okay, think of this situation. And I've had only one instance where someone couldn't come up with an example from his life about that. And when I started working with him and I was about to give up, I said, are you sure you've never displayed this ever in your life? And he said, this is what I want to be. And that's no wonder, after spending so much time, neither he or with my help came up with the story. Because if you are something, then you would have displayed it. And if you're really good at it, or if you really believe in it, you would have displayed it multiple number of times. And so I think I would work the other way, which is figure out in this interview what is important about me that it should come across, and then look back and say, where are the incidences in my life, experiences which I have demonstrated that ability. I would say it's one of the more powerful ways of communication, because the question is, what is it that you're trying to achieve? If you're trying to achieve connection, if you're trying to achieve engagement, if you're trying to achieve inspiration, I think it is one of the most powerful, or the most powerful. But if you're trying to incite a crowd, or a mob, or you're trying to get people into a frenzy, then a rhetoric with lots of opinions and touching upon faith, something like, let's say, the politicians would do, would be far more powerful, because storytelling would take a lot more time to get a mob into a frenzy. But since that's not what we do for a living, yes, storytelling would be one of the more.
So what would be the difference between these assertions or opinions and stories?
See, assertions and opinions are usually not very credible, whereas stories are. Going back to the bank example, let's look at two scenarios. I come in and I introduce myself like a mini resume. My name is Indranil. I was born in Shillong and did engineering, and then blah blah. I did this and then blah, and I did this. And 4 years ago, I started Storyworks. I really believe that I have everything that it takes to build a startup into a big company. I am very hardworking. I am extremely innovative, and I have what people need when they're trying to get things done in a chaotic environment and doing it alone. And I'm pretty certain that I'm going to make a success of this, so I need some loan. Now tell me, as a banker, how much of what I claimed you believed?
I think a normal person would have tuned out like a long time ago.
A, you would have tuned out, and B, you would have probably, your brain is going, oh yeah, okay. Now let me do it another way. I come in and say, hi, my name is Indranil. I was born in Shillong to a middle class family, but somehow my parents managed to put me into a premier education institute where almost all my classmates were from more affluent families than I was. Tea garden kids and the works. And they always had more money to spend in the tuck shop, the canteen. And so one day I came up with an idea of running a comic circulating library, that too with borrowed comics. And I made a bit of money. Not as much as they had, but a bit more than I ever had. And that really excited me. And stuff like that has always excited me. And then I finished my schooling and went to college, blah, blah, and then that, and maybe another incident or two.
Yeah.
And, I started Storyworks, and I'm pretty certain that, with all the passion I have, I will make this work. Can I have some money? Which would make you
The second one is obviously the one.
What did you get out of that second one?
So essentially, it is the fact that you're passionate about what you're doing, that you're dedicated. All those things that you were mentioning about in your first introduction, they all came through, but they were my own deductions.
Absolutely.
Why is it that when you tell me, I don't believe them, but when I deduce it myself, I don't even question it. I just assume, this must be the truth.
That's exactly what your question was. What is the difference between assertions, opinions, and stories? Assertion opinions are usually not credible. Yeah, perhaps because we've been sold to so much in life that if someone comes and says this, we say, I'm not so sure. But when you deduce, so if you deduce that I was entrepreneurial in nature, you came to the deduction. And we own our ideas far more than, which is why it's so difficult to change people's mind, because when it is my idea, it is so much more powerful than when it is someone else's. So let's take a third situation. One is where I tried to tell you I was entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
You didn't believe.
Yeah.
A friend of yours came and told you, someone you trust, that I'm entrepreneurial, versus you heard my story and you came to the conclusion I'm entrepreneurial. Which is the most powerful?
Well,
yeah.
I think the story would still.
Yeah, because you came to the conclusion,
Yeah.
not your friend. Yeah, and that is what stories can do. Given that in an interview situation someone else is going to open, except when I say hello.
Yeah.
I can't say hello and then start a story because I'm not giving a speech or I'm not giving a presentation.
Yeah.
But I would look for an opening as early as I can, yeah, of instead of giving an opinion, using a story. So if it is like, okay, so my first question is, why did you decide to join this company? Oh, I decided to join this company because I wanted to work with a multinational who gives cross-functional exposure, blah, blah. If you're prepared for this, you're going to say, when was the first time I thought about this? Yeah. And it might be, the day I walked in, there was a senior who had come into, or an ex-pupil who had come in to visit, and he was talking about what an experience he had had, and that's the day I said I want to work in a company like this. So again, you've taken an incident and then brought it out. So try and move into example mode, into experience mode, into story mode as soon as you can. Now within a story, I think for people starting out initially, I think the best place to start is with a time marker. So typically stories have the following elements. One, it will have a combination of a time marker and a location marker.
Okay.
Yeah. So where did it happen? When did it happen?
Yeah.
Time markers are a great signal to the brain that a story is coming, and it's also a great place to start. 3 years ago, or when I was in college, 15 days earlier, it will then have a sequence of events, a causal sequence of events.
Okay.
Some people call it a narrative arc. What happened, because of which something else happened, because of which something else happened. Yeah. Again, going back to my comic circulating library, there were people with more money. I didn't have enough money. I came up with the idea of a comic circulating library, and it was successful. Yeah. So this had there was a reason why I came up with the comic circulating library. Right? So if you can have causal sequence of events, the third thing a story will have is characters. Yeah. And in an ideal scenario, it would be great for characters to have names. And the reason it's important is that's how we connect and empathize. Because think of your favorite novel. Imagine I took it back and I replaced the name of the hero with the hero, and then went the hero, he, his, him, and gave you the novel back. Would it be the same novel?
Quite average.
Why? It's the same plot, it has everything, it has the same surprises, same climaxes. But no, because you can't identify with the hero, you can identify with Ajay. Yeah? Which is why many people when they write, or reporters when they write and don't want to talk about someone, they don't leave it as the housewife from Bareilly. They say Sheila, put a star and say name or anonymous, After the second paragraph, you've forgotten it is not Sheila. Yeah, that's why. So the third thing is characters and idle names, and then finally, then every story has to have some kind of an unexpectedness. Yeah, a surprise. Not I fell off my chair surprise necessarily, but I raise an eyebrow surprise. Yeah. So again, going back that comic circulating library, the surprise is who would have thought that someone in class 3 would have come up with something like that, and that's the bit of a surprise. And so those are the elements that put together make up a story. One of the things that one could think about when you're looking for stories, yeah. So let's say I've come up with the word creative as a attribute that I want to tell you about, and I'm trying to think through when have I been most creative. Yeah. One of the ways to look at it is look at emotions, because many of our great memories are stored with an emotional charge. So when was I very proud of my creativity? When was I recognized for my creativity? Yeah. When did I surprise myself with creativity? Some of these emotion words can help you trigger that memory, because memories are stored with emotional triggers. Like I said, you are all storytellers, so you don't have to build the skill of that. It's how do you make it better. Yeah. So the first thing I would do in a situation like this is go to 2-3 people that I trust, who I know will be blunt and honest with me, and without giving them the background, oh, I'm going to meet Procter & Gamble tomorrow and I want to come across as, no. I would just go and say, hey guys, I'm going to tell you an incident and then I'm going to ask you a question. And so, when I was in school, blah, blah. Yeah. When you hear that, what do you infer about me, my values, my beliefs, my character? Yeah. And you hear what they're saying. If what they're saying is in line with whatever you wanted to say, it doesn't have to be the exact word you had written down, but the meaning, then you've got the right story. Yeah. So that's the first thing. You have to test drive your story to know that what you thought you're getting out or demonstrating in that story is indeed what is being perceived. Right? The second reason you should test drive a story is sometimes there could be stuff in that story, because we are not unidimensional and no event is unidimensional. So every event will bring forth not just one part of who you are, but multiple parts of who you are. You don't want anything that's negative to come out of that story. And so you see if there is anything negative. Sometimes if it's very negative, then you've got the wrong story. If there are some bits of negative, you usually can spot which part of the story that is, and it's not being inauthentic, it's not just being focusing on that aspect. So once you know you've got a good story, the second thing would have happened by now when you've done it 3 times. And you try this any number of times. The second and the third telling of a story is always tighter than the first. Yeah. Why does that happen? Because in the first time, I'm just narrating, going back into my experience and telling you, and 2 things are happening. I'm myself editing it in my head and saying, why did I say that? I don't need to say this. The second is, subconsciously, your eyes, the listener's eyes, is sending me a message of when are you interested and when I'm losing you, and that'll help me edit it. So the second thing that has happened by telling it 3 times is I've automatically tightened it. But if I'm going to use it in a very critical situation, I do 2 more things. I take out my phone, put it onto flight mode, take the voice recorder, record myself, and I listen to it. And invariably I find, this is not right or that's not right. The other thing that I pick up is, am I stumbling somewhere? Very often, in order to try and prove something, we try and use words that may not be natural to us. Yeah. And there's this Ronald Reagan speechwriter had said a nice thing. She had said, when you falter, alter. Yeah. So if it's not natural, don't try and polish it, just drop it, change it. Yeah. So you listen to that, you listen to nuances, you listen to yourself and say, I could get rid of that. The second thing I would do is I would, after having thought, okay, now I've tightened it, I would transcribe it on a piece of paper. And then again I would go word by word, line by line to say, if this is the point I'm trying to make, then what is relevant? Let's go back to my comic circulating library story. Maybe I had a great name for that comic circulating library, and maybe my name was The Phantom in the Classroom, and I was really proud of it. Is that relevant to the point I was making that I'm entrepreneurial? No. So I need to get rid of it. Yeah, the more things I can get rid of without losing the point I'm making is going to make it tighter. Yeah? And remember, that's one of the ways you make the story invisible. If your story is too long, people figure out you're telling a story.
So is there like an ideal length of a story in that kind of setting? I know it'll depend by the story, but still like...
I try to make sure that no connection story, this is what we call, stories that you're telling people to infer something about you. My ballpark is 30 to 60 seconds. If you have a really powerful story, then 60. But if you've done everything and it's 65, I won't fret. But yeah, I would like stories to be below 30 seconds if I can.